listening to the Ice Prep Podcast. Here's your hosts, Brian and Pat.
And welcome, everyone, to episode 20 of Ice Prep Podcast. I think we're getting near the point where we can stop counting episode numbers.
Yeah.
We're getting up there in numbers, and it eventually just becomes, like, it's not that big of a deal. We made it past 10, which is, like, the initial hurdle for, like, every podcast out there. So
Yeah, when I was writing the notes for this, I had to put the 2-0, and I was really surprised. It's great to see it. I'm excited about 20. Woo!
yes, and it's been another week in the hockey world. It seems like every single time there's a good story to look at, it's like here's 7 bad stories that are right at the front of the news. Yeah. Obviously, the big one right now, we were going back and forth. We want to talk a lot about this. We just kind of want to mention it. I think we're not going to go too much into it, but the Ice Dogs...
It's still kind of evolving, so there's most likely more information.
Based on reports coming out, it seems like a lot more bad news for the Ice Dogs is going to come out. For those that don't know, this story dropped yesterday. The OHL has suspended the Niagara Ice Dogs general manager and head coach for at least 2 years for conduct deemed prejudicial. I cannot say that word. Can Pat say that word for me?
I don't even have it up. I'm sorry. I just have the rage
sometimes
in
you
my
look at a
brain.
word and you're like, I know that word, and then you go to say it and it doesn't.
Yeah, your brain just doesn't click.
come to you.
Yeah,
something to the welfare of the league. It'll come to me after. This all came from a leaked WhatsApp conversation, which it is absolutely disgusting what these two human beings said. None of what they typed we could even attempt to repeat. A, I don't want to, and B, we definitely can't. They've also been fined $150,000. They put out an apology.
that's not an apology.
Which, that's what they call it.
No.
A statement which is supposed to be an apology. It's basically they're trying to play the victim and they're throwing the blame elsewhere.
They completely missed the point of the whole thing. I'm gonna try and not get too heated about this because it's very angering to see not only just the messages that went back and forth with it, but also the complete lack of apology in exactly how you said it was a statement. They didn't apologize. They said, oh, well, we didn't say anything racist, though. So that's literally their bar. Because they didn't say anything racist, they feel like they weren't in the wrong after saying overtly sexist comments and overtly homophobic comments.
Which they didn't apologize for that part, by the way.
No, they didn't.
They
even
only
apologize for that.
apologized for basically saying they apologized directly to their female staff for a vulgar slang word that was used. Nothing about that. And they were like, well, hey, we weren't racist.
That's the bar. That's the bar for hockey right now is, hey, at least we weren't racist. That's pathetic. That is absolutely pathetic.
And you're right. We won't spend too much time on this, but looking at it, the thing in here that made my blood boil probably more than anything else was that, I'm going to quote directly from their statement. It should also be noted that in 14 years, we have worked for the team. We have never had a complaint brought against us for any inappropriate language or behavior towards any staff or player because everyone has been afraid to. Look at what just happened in the NHL in the last few years. We've had GMs, coaches, management all removed because people suddenly feel like they can go forward with what's happened without fear of repercussion or their job being on the line. So when there's reports out there that this is just the tip of the iceberg, this is not going to end up well for Billy Burke and Joey Burke because stuff that is said here is going to get them in so much more trouble.
Well, and oh, nobody came forward in the 14 years. Yeah, or maybe they did and you buried it. Maybe that's what's happened because that's what all the other GMs did. That's what everyone else did is they buried it. They pushed away the issue. They made it a non-issue by silencing it, by pushing them out of the team, trading them away, whatever it is. they got rid of what they saw was the problem. And instead of actually fixing the problem, which is getting rid of these, oh, I just want to say the worst words in the world for these people. And like, I also want to say, you know what? I'm going to go after the character of these people. I have no problem. You're a grown blank adult. You are a grown adult. And you're calling yourself Billy and Joey. Come on, grow up.
It's, I think we could easily spend the entire episode talking about this, digging into it, ripping it apart. Before we get too heated on this, because I know we're kind of both teetering on that right now.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go from there and move on. Because before the podcast, we were really humming and hawing on how far into this do we want to go, and I think we're going to back off on this. As you said, there's going to be more that comes out, so we will dive into it in the future, potentially. We'll see. But
before we do leave, just this will never change if we just keep pretending like everything is, these reconditioning stints are working, because they're not. It is a problem. It is a problem. Like, to say this isn't who we are, it is who you are, because it happened. That is what hockey is right now, and it needs to change. And anybody that says that it's not what hockey is isn't paying attention. So, with that, let's move away from it, because I know I'm going to get far more heated, and I literally could rant about this for probably about 6 hours, and nobody really wants to hear that.
No. I will put a link to the text chain in the description for this, so if you haven't seen it and you do want to see, if it's something that you feel might cause an issue for you, trust me, don't look at what was said. It's not worth it. So we'll go from there. This is about as hard of a turn as we have ever had on this podcast.
Yep.
To talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs. We're not going to talk about the blow up that was a 5-2 or what was it, 5-1 lead. At the end of the day, yeah, it sucks. Florida has done that a few times this year. Mm-hmm. They come back. It was a back-to-back. They beat Tampa like they beat Tampa on Monday night. Goalie gets injured. So, yeah, the Leafs lost that game. That's 2 games in a row. Florida has come back from being down 4 goals to win 7-6 in overtime, which is just
impressive,
ridiculous.
Very impressive.
But if they do that in the playoffs, they don't stand a chance of getting out of the first round at all. You're not going to get hockey like that in the playoffs. And there's something that you have in the notes here. I need you to explain this one to me, because I feel it is such a bad take, but I want to hear what you have to say on it.
Now, I don't have much behind it. It's just kind of a gut feeling, to be honest with you. So with the Florida game, that also included the return of Jake Muzzin into the lineup. He'd been out for a bit with being injured. Surprise, surprise. That seems to be sort of Jake Muzzin. The reason is injury. That's pretty much. I don't even know what that tagline is. It's terrible. I couldn't think of one. My allergies are kicking in today, so I've got sinus brain. However, I'm a strong believer that Jake Muzzin is one of the most overhyped and overvalued players in the NHL. He was good for a year, maybe 2, and he has been declining ever since the injuries have been piling up. Every time he comes back into the lineup, everyone's very excited. They're all like, Muzzin is back, here we go. Muzz is on the ice, and then he just doesn't look good. He plays sloppy. He's a turnover machine. He puts his defensive pairing partner in really difficult situations that they have to make tough choices. And unfortunately, a lot of the choices go the other way, but it could also just be because they had to make a choice. And then the person's like, cool, you bit. That's what I hoped you did. I've never been impressed when Muzzin is on the ice. And I know I'm probably going to take heat for that. And there's a lot of takes I'll take heat for when it comes to the Leafs. But I sincerely believe that Jake Muzzin isn't a bad hockey player. He's just a third pair defenseman that's being hyped up to a first because the Leafs had been so desperate for good defensemen for so long. Muzzin was a godsend at the time. Not so much anymore.
When he first came to the Leafs and he wasn't battling the injuries, yeah, he was up there. I do think that, yeah, they had him back on the second pairing with Hall, which used to work. It clearly doesn't. They've tried it a few times this year. It has not worked at all. Something that I've seen thrown around a lot is put him on the third pair. Put him out there with Lyubushkin, and don't let Muzzin have to be the defensive responsible guy, because you watch him. You called that point right. He is not as defensively responsible as he once was, because it's almost like he doesn't, and you can't blame him. The injuries that he has, he doesn't go full force at people anymore. There's that little bit of hesitation. So it seems like for him, I was surprised at how offensive he can be, and we saw it a little bit earlier this year. So I'm wondering if he does get a bit of that role change from being the defensive-minded pairing partner to more of the offense. You put Lyubushkin with him. Giordano and Liljegren has looked great. Who would have thought that the youngest player?
If you break that up, that is a terrible idea. Terrible.
And then you put Riley Brody back together, and that's the best defensive pairing that the Leafs have probably had for 20 plus years. That to me right there sounds like it should be. And then you give time for the third pair. Your third pair is not going to get all the hard minutes, and that might be how you ease them back in. Maybe you adjust things come the playoffs, but every single time that I see Muzzin with Hall, it's the other team's going to get at least 1 or 2 goals when they're on the ice this game if that stays together. So do I think Muzzin is the problem? No. Do I think he's being utilized incorrectly right now? Absolutely.
So I'm going to say something that I sincerely actually believe. The Leafs have 12 games left. They're currently sitting at 70 games played, which means you've got 12 remaining. Math. That's how math works, just for those listening.
Or 11 by the time this comes out.
That's true, yeah, because we're recording on Thursday. Our favorite catchphrase of we're recording this on Thursday. So they've got 12, in theory, 11 games remaining. So what Keefe and Dubas have, they have to test him on every single pairing. They have to put him with literally every single defenseman right now. And I have a weird gut feeling we might see Muzzin scratched come the playoffs. I don't know if he's powerful enough to be that offensive defenseman. I don't think he has that gas in the tank to switch it to that as his semi-permanent role. He was always a defensive defenseman for the most part, with a little bit of offensive upside. He's always been more of a defensive defenseman. But if you're going to be switching to that, you look at who the proper offensive defensemen are, and they go in deep. They're fast, they're quick, they hit the corners, they sneak in. He's not a sneaky player. He doesn't really have that gear. So,
but if that's on your third pair, that doesn't matter as much, because they're never going to be as much out there when that's necessary. So it's
I'd rather have
if he was legitimately up on the first line, I would be like, that is a very bad call, and he is going to get turnstiled a ton. But it's the same thing. I know this is going to be a very bad example, but if you have a player that basically just sits at the blue line and doesn't move, so that you've got a player like Makar or like Quinn Hughes that can just go and do whatever. It doesn't matter if they are as offensively gifted as those two players. It's that extra body pushing ahead, and especially if you have somebody like Marner or you've got somebody like Mikheyev or Engvall out there for the Leafs that can make up that difference. They're all faster than Muzzin. They're probably all more defensively responsible than him right now, too.
I know, but then what you're doing is you're taking some of these more, literally more offensive players. People, that is their role on the offense, is to be in there and just shooting the pucks, doing all that work. And you're saying, okay, you need to scale that back because this liability needs to go in. If it were me and I'm looking at my lineup, Gio and Lily, you can't get rid of that. Brody and Riley, you can't get rid of that. Lyubushkin, you need him there. He wasn't able to, like you saw on Florida, he couldn't move anybody of the front of the net because he wasn't playing. And Steve Dangle pointed it out on his LFR and on his podcast. 5 of the goals were because people were right in the front of the net. You need that
and
body.
It's so tough to say because he was pulled out of the one game, so that could be injury related. Like there still could be some post concussion going on there with him. So it's just one of those things you never know.
But like I'd rather
it's a good thing for the
Hall.
It's a good thing for the Leafs though, because if we are arguing,
it's a good problem.
Literally about their third pair.
Yeah, what happens?
It's like
to
getting. He's going to be the odd one out at this point. He's been gone too long, unfortunately. That unless it's just the rotating between Muzzin, Hull, and Sandin as your third line pairing, because you're not taking Lyubushkin out if he's healthy. He has become he's the anchor, not in the bad way, but he is like in the defensive zone for the Leafs. You want him as your defenseman out there, unless TJ Brody's sliding across the ice and always stopping pucks for some reason.
Well, like Lyubushkin, and I'll eat my words and say Giordano is a lot better than I expected him to be. I'd watched him in Calgary a few times and everything like that, obviously when he would play against Colorado or even the Leafs, and I was never really that impressed. He's very impressive when he's been playing on the Leafs, but I think it also just depends on the pairing. He was with Brody in Calgary, but he did not look good on Seattle at all. He was floundering out there, but it's also because the team itself does not look good. So you look at the scoops that were made of Giordano and Lyubushkin. Those literally those two guys alone are now causing problems that are good, and that's awesome. Yeah. That is really good to hear for a team that last year it was just like, holy crap, what kind of awful defense are we going to be expecting this year?
Well, same with Blackwell up front.
Yeah.
Like he was supposed to be this kind of just then add-in player, and you're not ever taking him off that fourth line. You've got him and Clifford. Now it's like, okay, well, who joins them? So we could. I can't believe we're getting this much into the probable third defensive pairing.
Well, it's because I know
Leafs.
you love Muzzin. We were all every time you're like, oh, Muzz is the best. I'm like, I don't think you're right.
When he is on, though, you can see the difference. It just feels like he hasn't been on since Game 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs against Montreal last year.
He hasn't been
Some
on.
tweaked. He hasn't been right.
Further back.
I do want to stick with the Leafs though, because you had not one Leafs take in here, but you have a second Leafs take, and this is one of those ones that I
that I'm gonna get.
I
shot
laugh just
for?
because I know that you have probably texted this to the Leaf diehards that always message you when Matthews does something good.
Nope.
You haven't yet.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Nope. I've been saving this one.
Well, you can save it if you want, or you can fire that bullet out here now. It's up to you.
Well, okay. So obviously,
So Matthews, just for context, Matthews right now has officially tied the Maple Leafs record for most goals in a season at 54, tying Rick Vive as of the time of recording.
Mm-hmm.
He has technically he has 2 more games. If he scores 3 goals in those next 2, he also joins the de facto 50 and 50 club, which is a very elusive group.
Yep. So, congratulations to him for that, especially for the hat trick. It's always good. There's so many hat tricks this year, which is wonderful. I love it. So yeah, congratulations for him finally playing near where he's valued to be played. If you're going to be asking for McDavid money, you should probably be putting up McDavid points. He hasn't up until this point. And he's still not there, obviously, because McDavid is beating him in points. But, their contracts are almost identical. And I don't know, I'm told, the amount of times I try and defend assists and I get yelled at because assists don't matter, it's only the goals. Okay, fine. McDavid, obviously, he's not putting up the same amount of goals. I get that. But if McDavid's valued at that, then he's putting up all those points, he's winning all that hardware, all of that stuff, then Matthews should be pretty much right up there with McDavid points-wise. Plain and simple.
The only thing I'll argue with on this is there's 11 points between them right now. McDavid does have 5 more games played, And for how we've seen both of those players, the 5-game difference, they could technically be tied. But yes, at this point, McDavid, top of the league, one of 3 players above 100. Matthews sitting at 95. But the fact that 54 of those are goals are worth more than assists, but the playmaking ability of McDavid is probably worth just as much as the goals.
I would honestly say the person that should be making Matthews' contract is Mitch Marner.
And he almost does. Do you know what I wish would have happened? That Marner would have been run out of town, traded to the Devils when all of that was happening, because every non-Leaf fan was watching from the outside looking in, being like, do you guys see what you have in Mitch Marner? And you're crucifying him for everything?
Because the Leafs fans have to crucify one of their players at all times.
They always have to have a scapegoat, and for whatever reason, they chose Marner because the number was big. And I saw this, I can't remember where I heard it or saw it, and it's the best description I have ever heard, because a major part of hockey in our lives in the last 10 years has been watching Ovechkin and Backstrom just dummy the league in stupid ways. We have the next generation of that in Matthews and Marner finally playing together, and people wanted to break that up and trade one of it away. There was never calls in Washington to be like, get Backstrom out of here. He's a bum. He's getting overpaid. Excuse me?
I don't know. Like, you look at Marner's numbers and you look what he can do with the puck, and I feel like he has better talent. His shot
now
is
that
getting
his
better.
shot is back, it's the every single time I listen to a lot of podcasts, and they're like, where did this shot come? What is going on with Marner this year?
He's had the shot the whole time.
He right now is playing the same game that he did when his line in junior was himself, Christian Dvorak, and Matthew Tkachuk.
Yep.
When all 3 of those players, you never knew if there was going to be a pass, an amazing move, or a shot, or a shot on goal. And Marner's got that back again.
Well, he doesn't even need a line.
Mind you,
for
when
that.
you see Matthews do some of those passes, Matthews is now starting to get some of that playmaking as well. So they're clearly rubbing off on each other. Like, it's...
But you look at what Marner can do just by himself.
Oh.
And it's just...
That around the entire offensive zone, finds the open man pass. We've seen like one other player pull that off in the last few years quite like that. That's a defenseman that plays for Vancouver. I think Makar may have attempted it once or twice, but like I still think that Mitch Marner needs to be a defenseman, so he's on the ice more, but that's just me.
Well, he has so much ice time for a winger. Like, he's on the power play as well as on the PK. He's on the top line. Like, the kid is so talented, and it's frustrating that, like, I've been saying, yeah, Matthews is great, whatever. Like, Mitch Marner, when you talk about the top 10 players in the league, he's never part of the conversation. And it's just like, he is so fantastically good at the game and so undervalued and underappreciated. The Leafs, like, if he wasn't a Torontonian, he would be gone. I can guarantee that he'd be like, I don't have to deal with this. I don't care. But because it's a hometown team, he's willing to take the verbal abuse. Online, in person, whatever it is, he is willing to take it, and he fought through those mental demons, and he's showing that he is in the top 5, in my opinion.
Oh, and it's one of those things you look at, the way that going in, even for the first like half of this season, the way that the fans were talking about him, you wouldn't think that he's like a 1.1 or 1.1 whatever point per game average for his career right now.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of players that do that. In the entirety of the NHL, there is very few point per game players, and you wanted to run him out of town?
Well, and so this
Come on down. Every other team wants you.
This is also my spicy take right now. I would rather have Marner on my team than Matthews on my team. Because you can see that Marner...
I don't think that's a spicy take.
Because Marner can make anybody better. Matthews...
Look what he did with John Tavares the first year that John Tavares was with the Leafs. And now everybody's like, well, why can't he do that anymore? Because Marner's not on his line.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, I mean,
Like,
Tavares, don't get me wrong, he's still pretty much playing a point a game. If he's not playing a point a game, he's flirting with that number. He's still doing well, and everyone's saying, oh, he's overvalued. Maybe for 11 mil, but at the same time, he's still a fantastic player. But I go back to the original point of Austin Matthews finally getting close to playing where he's being paid. I don't think that's out of line, because he said, this is what I'm worth, and he hadn't proved it up until this point. And in my opinion, until the playoffs roll in, both Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews have not proved they are worth that contract until they can get to the second round. And I mean, it's as simple as that.
I don't think you can fault Marner as much for that, because if I remember correctly, of the big four, I think he's the only one that still stands as a point per game in the playoffs. No, I believe
that was Nylander.
No, I thought. Oh, is it Neil? Because I know Nylander hard carried them last year, and then Philip Deneau completely just shut down the entirety that was the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah. But yeah, it's I agree with on.
You didn't
Austin
expect
Matthews
to agree
is
that,
a better
did you?
Austin Matthews is a much better player because of Mitch Marner, and Mitch Marner is a better player because of Austin Matthews. Those two go hand in hand. Now that Matthews he has added that extra arsenal. Like, you look at the saucer passes that he is throwing off lately and the playmaking that he's doing. Does Matthews still have 54 right now without Marner?
No.
Absolutely not. He's probably sitting back there quite a bit. Does Marner have 88 points, I believe, right now without Matthews? He's probably sitting closer to a point per game instead.
Yeah.
But
I honestly,
Austin Matthews is definitely benefiting more from Mitch Marner than vice versa.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking too, because a lot of Mitch Marner, what he's been able to do has been also just by the plays that he's been able to create. Whereas Matthews, he can do that, but not even
just
close.
Scores from everywhere. That's just the difference.
Yeah, he can't do what Mitch Marner does, and that is completely control play with what's on his stick. Like, I look at Nathan McKinnon, for example, and the guy bobbles the puck more than I have ever seen a superstar. Like, it's frustrating, and I'm just like, why are you doing all this weird choppy crap with your stick? Like, he just, like, chops around the puck, and it looks great until he drops the puck and he loses control of it. Is he still a fantastic player? Absolutely. Does he need to work on his puck control? Abso-freaking-lutely he needs to get better at that. He's trying to do a million things. He only needs to do one. So, that is my take on Matthews. My Twitter handle for now. Is that Pat L if you want to yell at
me. Just want to quickly jump on this one. Don't really want to talk too much about it. Getzlaf announcing he's retiring. And then, if you haven't seen the interview that Corey Perry did about it yet,
just a little brief.
It's one of those things that hockey players hate Corey Perry unless he's playing for your team. Outside of hockey, he's probably one of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet, though.
Yeah. I mean, I've never met him, so I can't really speak to it, but no, the way he spoke about Getzlaf, and just right at the end when he chokes up, heartbreaking. I mean, you can just feel how much he loved playing with Getzlaf, and like how much love he has for him, and it's I can't imagine seeing kind of your best hockey bud saying, you know what, I think my career's done. That's gotta hurt. That's gotta sting a bit, especially when you're.
Well, and there's a lot from that year. There's a lot from that year recently that are starting to pack it in. So you look at it, it's like, who would have ever expected Perry to bounce around as much as he has, and to go back-to-back years losing in the Cup Finals, which was just Corey Perry thing. So either Tampa's going to lose in the finals, or just who knows what this year.
Well, it's like the cat with bread taped on it, because it got Pat Maroon. So you got Pat Maroon, who wins with every team he's on, but you've got Corey Perry that loses, so the cat's just going to be spinning. There's going to be no winner. It's just going to be a nebulous of time.
It's going to be another 7 OT game, just like every single game.
Yeah. Oh, my God. That would be a nightmare. The poor goalies.
Could you imagine if that 7 OT game happened and not the bubble, though? The poor fans.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been so funny. That is one of those moments in hockey history that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. They had to, like, delay a game.
It was
They
unreal.
couldn't get played. It was so weird to watch in real time.
It was good hockey too. Like, that was the other thing too. Like, it wasn't just that people were phoning it in. That was like, they pushed themselves, and they, like, every shot you're like, it's going in. And it just wouldn't.
The second that they scored that, you just kind of, everybody had the feeling, yeah, Tampa might just win this thing this year.
Yeah. Oh, I can't believe that.
I did want to talk about New Jersey today, but I should have wrote down what I wanted to say because I've got nothing. Jack Hughes gets injured again. He's done for the season. Which sucks because he was finally starting to get rolling again. 2 injuries in 1 year. The second one, which sucks because I will argue tooth and nail that was an intentional knee.
Yep, it looked very intentional.
You look back at everything, and he's gone for the season now, so you just have to hope that it's not anything bad and he can come on strong next year. Potentially his brother going to be playing with him. The Devils need one thing, and that is a goalie. And I don't know if they're going to get one because I don't know if Blackwood will be back next year, in which case we have like 0 goaltending unless we end up going after Ville Husso, who just is absolutely destroying every team on the planet right now.
I would beg to differ that New Jersey needs just one thing, and it's goaltending. They need 3 things. They need a goaltender, or rather, I suppose, a goaltending tandem.
Yes.
They need a third line, and they need a fourth line.
We actually are. No, I'm trying to because it's bounced around a little bit. Our fourth line's actually been half decent the last little bit. It's just been we go up 6-2, and then our special teams just sucks, and goalies come in cold. Yeah,
there's a decent amount of work.
It's to be expected. But we've given up 261 goals this year, so I mean,
yeah,
that's more than that's 7 less than the Avalanche have scored. So
true. So the one thing though, with talking about New Jersey, I want to slide into this one here, and this was my hypothetical, and I've expanded it a bit since our first time we talked about this because I think it's interesting. You are Shane Wright. For those that don't know, Shane Wright is the projected number 1 overall draft pick this coming draft. The kid looks like he's going to be fantastic no matter what team he goes on. So, most likely, you're the first round draft pick and the first pick out of all of it. There are 8 teams, roughly, that have a decent chance of winning the draft lottery. So, picking first. Which team, if you're Shane Wright, are you hoping wins the lottery out of Montreal, Arizona, Seattle, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Ottawa, Chicago, or Buffalo? Which I'm pretty sure, excluding Seattle and Montreal, is the same teams, the same 6 teams that have been in the bottom for like 7 years.
Chicago's kind of newish down there.
I guess Chicago.
There's only one team on there if you're Shane Wright that you want to go to, and that team is Montreal. With the change in management, if Marty St. Louis sticks around, like what he is doing to that squad is nothing short of a miracle. Aside from that, the way that the Sabres are playing right now, I know, oh my God, the Buffalo Sabres, they just got Owen Power, they've got Rasmus Dahlin, they traded away their second overall pick. The way that Buffalo looks right now, that is a team that is starting to go back on the up. Montreal as well. The other 6, that's like we're going to get McDavid seeing the Oilers win, and you cut to his face, and it's just like he looked like a ghost, a dead man walking when he found that out. Mm-hmm. If Arizona, Seattle, New Jersey, Philly, Ottawa, Chicago comes up, he will. I hope he's got a great poker face. Buffalo, you're still iffy on, but of the 8, Montreal is where you would want to go. Mind you, if he wants to make the most money, then probably Seattle. But other than that, it's a first overall pick wherever it ends up. He is potentially a generational talent. You say that everybody's a generational talent. He's one of those ones that might just be a tier below, and sometimes that can change the fortune of a team that's doing a proper rebuild. Montreal's doing a proper rebuild right now, and they're winning while they're doing it. So while I would like to see New Jersey get it, that's not going to fix any of our problems. That'll just be another first overall pick that goes there. I don't want to see it go to Philly. If it goes to Chicago, I'm going to be pissed. They don't deserve anything, honestly. They deserve all of their picks for the next 10 years just to be thrown into the sun. If he ends up in Arizona or Seattle, I am so sorry.
Okay, so
You're gonna play in front of less fans in Arizona than you currently do.
So I'm going to look at it, if I'm doing this Shane Wright experiment, I'm going to look at it in the sense of the people I'm going to be playing with versus anything else. And I know that that's the improper way to do it because you have to look at it as a whole. Like, if it was like, oh, okay, Buffalo, there's absolutely no way I would live in Buffalo. Like, no. But
There's that part, I guess.
yeah. So if I'm looking at the teammates, the teams that I'm going to be choosing, again, I agree with you. How about this? The teams I wouldn't choose are Seattle, Philly, and probably New Jersey. No, New Jersey I'd have on there. If it was simply for that reason, because Seattle, they literally had like 20% of a team. There's no hockey team there. It's an AHL team with a couple like NHL players that
big contract players.
Yeah. Then Philadelphia, they don't know what they're doing. They have no idea how to play hockey anymore. They've lost so much of what made them good, and they just don't.
And their management is just ridiculously stupid right now. So
they are just. They have no. It's a simple. They don't know what they're doing. Like,
they have no direction.
It would be the equivalent of me being a GM. Like, as much it seems like a fun job to have, but I would have no idea what I'm doing. That's what it feels like. So Montreal, you've got Caulfield, Suzuki, Price. Really, when you think about it, because it sounds like there's a potential he could be playing this year. If not, then most likely next year. You've got a lot of decent names on that team that are really fun to play with. I'm going to save that one. New Jersey, you've got Jack Hughes, Sharon Govich. You've got like some really solid talents, Dawson Mercer, Miles Wood even. Like, you've got some good people that you can play with there. Ottawa, you think about the talent on that team. That's
the one that I was sitting there looking at. And the only reason why I didn't include Ottawa is until we know any
GM.
Ownership changes and what's going to happen there. Apparently now the plans for the building downtown at LeBreton Flats are back in talks again.
Yep.
So it's so tough to say. If everything was stable with Ottawa right now, that would be, if you want to play with a team that has a chance to turn things around and you're going to be a superstar. You won't get the C there because you're going to have to pry that away from Brady Tkachuk's cold dead hands.
But you'd be happy with him having the C because he's such a good morale person. Like, there was that thing you sent me of him playing hockey, just street hockey.
Right after.
So, like, you've got really good people on that team. You got a lot of really good talent on that team. And I think a lot of people forget that. They were just really plagued by injuries this year. Then
they almost made it into the playoffs last year after starting the season with like the worst record in the league.
Exactly. They have skill. It's just going to take a little bit of time for it to develop. You look at the Leafs, same thing. I mean, as much as you think, Matthews and Marner right out of the gate were incredible, they were really good, but it took time for them to develop into better players. So Ottawa, I feel, would be kind of, to me, if I was cherry picking, I would choose Ottawa. Chicago, again, excluding everything outside of just the players, there's some pretty good young talent on there that you would be playing with for a few years. So not terrible, but they'd be lower on the list. And Buffalo. Buffalo is good. Like, they're a good team. They have 15 points in their last 10.
Who would have thought honestly, what a change for Buffalo ever since Alex Tuch came back from injury, essentially.
Yep.
Part of that Eichel trade. They have looked like a whole different team, and good on them for it. Yeah, we're pretty much in agreement. Ottawa, for me, has the asterisks just because of not the future there is so unknown.
But there's one team I didn't talk about yet, and it's the one that I think, personally, I would choose, and that is Arizona. One, you will for sure sell out every single night, because if they do $1 beer night at the college, absolutely it'll be filled up. But again, joking aside, and if it's just about the teammates, that is going to be a really young team. that is going to be a team of young people all playing roughly at the same age because they have so many first-round draft picks this year and next year. They have so many draft picks just in general over the next couple years that they're going to be able to build this. And I know you could say the same about Seattle, but I feel like there's already some really solid pieces on the Arizona team, including Clayton Keller. Lawson Krause is a really good leader on the team. If Kessel somehow still stays there, that's a fantastic person to have as a mentor. You have really good talent there that's just underutilized, and I'm really hopeful that we do see a turnaround in Arizona soon because they do have these draft picks, and they're going to be playing on a team that has people at the same age growing together, having fun together, and redefining what that team is together. And that is such a cool opportunity for a young player.
That doesn't always work, though, because that's been the New Jersey Devils the last 2 years.
Absolutely.
And everybody was like, hey, they're this young team. They've got all this talent. And they fall flat on their face. The only reason why I would put Arizona and New Jersey in the same category is that it seems like both teams, yeah, they're going young. Yeah, they've got all these players. There's just a lack of direction.
Yeah.
There's it's like me saying New Jersey, they need goaltending. Obviously, there's other things, but it's not just that. There's issues with the coaching. Oh, there's issues with the coaching in Arizona. Arizona, as it stands right now, with the college arena that they're going to play at, they wouldn't play their first game there until December.
Yeah.
So, there's a whole other beast. Who knows? There could still be an outside. For all we know, the Islanders could end up with it, in which case, bless you, Shane Wright, you're going to play for the most boring team in the league imaginable.
It's just Valium on skates.
He's the consensus number one, and obviously, who knows where it can end up. We've seen teams jump up recently, and it's been both good and bad. Sometimes players fall into your lap that you don't expect, and you're the New York Rangers, and you rebuild a lot faster than you expect.
Oh,
because
my
Panarin
goodness.
also wants to come join you.
Oh, my goodness.
So,
are they in the draft lottery if they make it to the playoffs? I can't remember the rules.
No, the second that you're in the playoffs, you have a 0.0% chance, unless you own the first-round pick of a team that has a chance at it, and it's not top 10 or top 5 protected.
Gotcha. Okay. I couldn't remember.
They're making the playoffs. They're at 96 points.
I know. It was one of those, if they had like a 0.5% chance or something, if there was like even just the tiniest little one, I would die. I would just howl with laughter if the Rangers won it again. And they're like, what the hell are we going to do with this? Like, I would trade it away. I would just be like, give me a goalie for this first round draft pick. I don't want this garbage. Like,
do you know there's obviously teams on there you didn't mention. Do you know what team in the league there's two of them that I would love to see him go to? Either Detroit or Anaheim.
Oh, I would love to see him on Anaheim. Him and Zegras.
Could you imagine that ridiculousness?
That'd be great. All of these old guys that do radio broadcasting and everything, they would die. They wouldn't know how to handle that. Two talented people that want to hot dog it up. Well, everyone's going to get punched in the face if they're all on the same team. Stupid.
I don't even want to get into that.
I didn't want to
quickly want to mention that congratulations to your Avalanche, officially the second team to qualify for the playoffs.
Woo.
Even though they're the number one team in the league, and that's just because the East is that stupid with how many teams are at the top right now. As it stands right now, it could be Nashville, LA, Dallas, or Vegas, who the Avs do their first round against. None of those sound like a good first round for the Avs, if we're being totally honest.
I desperately
But it's
want
better
Dallas
than
or
Minnesota
Vegas.
or St. Louis.
It's got to be Dallas or Vegas. Period. It has to be. They have to defeat a demon to get to the next round. They have to get past it. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but you look at the Leafs, it's the same thing. It's got to be Boston. It has to be.
Yeah. And right now, do you know what I want to see? Edmonton fall to wildcard 1. I want that first round battle of Alberta so badly.
Oh no.
That I would stay up so late every single one of those games to watch. They're honestly the worst hockey games, but they're so fun to watch. But Edmonton, LA would be also, yeah.
LA is really good. Nobody's talking about LA. I know we kind of mentioned it last week, but I watched some of their games, and my goodness, they've got so much talent and so much grit. And not toughness grit, but grit to power through and just second effort every single time. They lose a puck, they're reaching back for the puck instead of accepting that they've lost it. And that's where their goals are coming from, is that second effort over and over and over. I just kept seeing it.
Everybody thinks it's still the same LA from like the last 2 or 3 years. No. It's like, no, they changed it. But Doughty's there. And
no, he's out.
They have changed so much. The addition of Deneau there to allow Kopitar to just play
Kempe's doing
what a genius move. Oh,
Trevor
yeah.
Moore.
And bringing in Victor Arvidsson.
Oh, there's...
Remember, the second that he went there, I said that he
either that's going to be
that is going to work out.
Yeah.
I think from there we will. There's so much more we could talk about. We will move on to this.
The Ice Prep Podcast presents Games of the Week.
We decided last week to not tell each other what our games of the week are. We ended up picking the exact same game. Funny enough, we just spent a fair amount of time just talking about one of the teams involved in that, the LA Kings. They were taking on the Calgary Flames. Chippy game. Those, even if Doughty's not there, that is such a fun game because they still have that like Kachuk Doughty energy. Both teams kind of get on that hate on each other. 3-2 win for the Flames. You love to see what looks like a playoff game just before the playoffs.
Well, and I stayed up to watch it, even though my body was really not happy about that. But I stayed up to watch the whole game, and yeah, they play such a similar game. They really do. Like well, I mean, I did say it wasn't grit in the strength department, but it was like they push each other hard off the pucks. You know, you've got Cal Peterson in it too that game, and he's a right-hand catch, which really throws off a lot of teams. So it was just a really good, solid game. Probably not the best game of the week. I think that obviously went to the Toronto-Florida game. That was bonkers insane. You most likely, if you're listening to this, you probably have heard of it, so we don't need to go too deep into it. But no, it was a solid game. I would love to see a Flames Kings matchup, especially with Doughty back in the lineup, because that would be the new battle. That, you know, would be the battle of the, I don't even know.
That could be another one of those ones where it's the goalie battle of like the losing goalie has a 9.9 save percentage.
Yeah.
Or a .990, which we've essentially seen
yeah.
in the last few years. So for this week, I will let you go first. You think you guessed what mine is?
No, I chose two as a backup.
Okay, right.
So
okay.
I'm good. You go first then.
before we started the podcast, you were like, I know exactly what game you are going to pick.
I wasn't that confident.
Okay. My game is on Saturday night.
Yeah, no, I was wrong, man. I didn't even look on Saturday.
This may surprise you, but it may not. Featuring the Golden Knights at home, taking on the Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah, because the Golden Knights got to win.
Now, I think obviously Vegas lost to Vancouver in a just poor performance, either Tuesday or Wednesday night. I can't remember. Like every single loss right now for them, because they have 3 games in hand on both of the wildcard teams, they can't be losing those games. Arizona has this innate ability this year. If you're a top team or if you're fighting for a playoff spot, you're probably going to get shelled and you're going to get goalied. So can Vegas overcome what has been like you don't want to be facing Arizona if you need points right now.
Yeah, and I read something earlier today being Thursday, that right now Vegas has a 41% chance of making the playoffs.
Which has gone up because it was 25% about a week ago.
And Vancouver and Winnipeg, the two that are kind of scraping and clawing at their heels a little bit, they're not close anymore.
I'd put them at a 0%, honestly.
They're very, very slim to none. However, maybe Vancouver goes on a tear. They could sneak in if Vegas continues to play poorly. So
Vegas is 7-3 in their last 10, though. Nashville is 6-4. Dallas is 7-3. Vancouver 3-4-3.
Yeah.
They essentially in their last 11 have to go 11-0 to have a chance of sniffing at wildcard 2.
And honestly, that's not it's feasible.
We've seen them go, what was it, 9-0 to start with Boudreaux?
Yeah, like
something like that. So
if they find a gear, it can be a much tighter race for it. So these games are important as much as it might seem like they are kind of shoe-ins for the last wild card spot. It's not a given, so it should be a really good game. And yeah, Arizona is wild. I don't know. They just roll the dice, and
that's Minnesota.
You know, that joke has never been funny.
That's the third time I did that to you this week. I honestly think that's the third time I've done that to you this week.
You get more satisfaction out of it than I do, and I don't like that.
I am a dad.
I know. Anyway,
forget that fact.
So I will flip a coin and decide which game I'm going to do. I'm not going to go for the low-hanging fruit. Originally, I did have Carolina and New York Rangers. That just seems like a low-hanging fruit one. It'll be a good matchup regardless. I think that'll be a good game. But the one that I think will be the game of the week is Nashville versus Pittsburgh on Sunday.
I looked at that.
Now,
so because that was a game that because I had said, wow, there's a lot of Stanley Cup rematches from the last few years. I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
That one's going back just a handful of years. There's like almost every single matchup from the last 5 or 6 years this week for some reason. I don't think I saw any of what could potentially be a first round matchup,
really,
which
no.
is kind of upsetting. But looking at Pittsburgh, like we all thought at the beginning of the year, like are they done? Is Crosby even going to bother coming back? And mind you, they're sitting third in the East right now. They're not gonna end up in the wild card. I don't see Washington leapfrogging them. Pittsburgh looks real good. Nashville, you're not wanting to see them in wild card 2. That's all I'll say on Nashville.
I'm sorry. Was this your game of the week? Because I'm pretty sure this was my game of the week. Let me tell you why I think this is my game of the week. No, Nashville and Pittsburgh. That's a mismatch in my opinion. They're two very different teams. They play two very different games. You look at the goaltending on both sides, fantastic. That's where they're very equal. But I find that when I watch those games, they feel very, very different, and that's why I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be weird to watch because they are going to be so mismatched, and one of the teams is going to have to switch modes. And if there's a team that can do it, I think it's going to be Pittsburgh. They have a bit more veteran presence, so they'll be able to play to that level. But I think it's going to be chippy. And I think it's going to be a bit more gritty than we've seen from the Pittsburgh team for the past little bit, because they've been a little under the radar, I suppose, in comparison to Nashville.
Yeah.
So
and they had back-to-back losses, I believe, against the Avalanche. So they're going to be coming in probably a little bit hot. The only thing I'll say about Nashville is ever since they allowed Roman Josi they basically took the Dragon Ball Z weights off of his legs. He's probably the scariest player in the league right now, honestly.
Yep, he's going to win the
Forget
Norris.
about the players sitting at... Oh, yeah, it's complete runaway at this point.
As much as I want
Forget about
Makar to
McDavid,
win.
Huberdeau, Draisaitl, all of them. If there's one player you do not want to see on the ice right now, it's Roman Josi.
Well, and another thing I kind of want to point out. So, this is going to feel very blasphemous for me to be talking about this, because there's two players that, I'm not a big fan of on either team. One is Sidney Crosby, which I've been vocal about, and it's simply because of what was happened in the Memorial Cup here in London, not about his play in the NHL. The other player is Matt Duchene, and he plays for Nashville. I don't like Matt Duchene.
Former
what?
Avalanche.
Yes.
Former Avalanche.
I thought you said for her, and I was just like, no.
Former Avalanche. The reason why there's the offside goal against rule that you can challenge.
Yeah, so super neat. But my goodness, that man can play hockey again. Watching what he's been able to do this season.
He has found such a gear.
Holy crap. He is fantastic again, which, good for him. As much as he was kind of a poison in the locker room for Colorado and everything like that, and caused a bit of a stir and everything, I mean, what we traded to get rid of him is the reason that Colorado is where they are right now. So it was beneficial for everybody in this trade, so I can't really hold too much against him. Josi and Duchene aren't getting enough credit, and if I was going to be voting for people, Josi might be up there for Hart
Yeah, I've actually seen that in the last little bit, though. The only issue is that I think you even sent this to me. It's basically it's almost a shoe-in. Whoever has the most points in the league,
Yeah.
it's like almost a guarantee. However, an exception could be made. Ovechkin is the only Rocket Richard winner to also win the Hart within the last 10 or 15 years. If Matthews crosses that 60-plus marker, that's a check mark for him. If Roman Josi passes the 90-point marker, I think that is McDavid will have to top 130 for that to outweigh a defenseman getting 90-plus points. We haven't seen that in, God, who knows how long now.
Yeah. So Nashville versus Pittsburgh, that's Sunday at 4. So that is a game that probably a lot of people could tune into and see. I would highly recommend if you're sitting around having a lazy day, like I plan on having a lazy day, and just throwing that on. I think that'll be a really good game. And you're going to see some talent there that is absurd. They're playing out of their mind. So, yeah, definitely my pick.
And one that we wouldn't have picked early on in the season as a game to watch. We'd have been like, this will be boring.
No, because it's not the Minnesota Wild.
I think from there we will wrap things up for this week. There's still so much more we could talk about, but we'll save that or we'll forget about it, and it'll come up episodes down the line. Anything you want to add as we head into what is the final, essentially 10-ish games for a lot of teams?
Don't be surprised if you see some weird stuff from the top teams. You're going to see some weird line combos and everything like that. I know Jared Bednar for the Avalanche said that he was going to just science some stuff because you never know who's going to get hurt. You never know who's going to be sick, especially right now. You just never know. So you're going to see some bizarre line combos. You might see a couple losing swings because of it. Don't be too afraid about it. That's pretty normal for this time of the year. And one last little shameless plug that I'm going to throw out here is tonight, Thursday night, because we're recording on a Thursday, I'm going to go see one of the best concerts, and this is not advertised in any way, shape, or form. I just think everyone should know this. One of the best concert experiences I have ever been to was for the band Dwayne Gretzky. They are a cover band. They are from Ontario. It is a huge collection of fantastically talented musicians, and they do, it's pretty much, I think they call themselves the ultimate party band because they cover all the songs you know, you love, you can sing at the top of your lungs with a beer in hand and just have a fantastic time. If you do have a chance to go see them, if they're in the area, I sincerely beg you to go and see it. I went on a whim on my honeymoon and we saw it, and we have been just dying to see them again, and we're so excited that tonight, me and my wife, we get to go and see Dwayne Gretzky do Big Shiny Wayne, I think is what they called it. It's the 90s.
I can't wait to get the drunk text from Pat later on tonight.
Oh yeah, I booked the day off tomorrow specifically for this, so I'm so excited.
That's how you know it's gonna be a good one.
It'll be a great show. So yeah, I would highly recommend that if you just love good music. It's as simple as that.